Hello, we are live here on WOLFpak TV. I'm your host, Wendy Fortino, and I am joined by two incredible guests who have a lot to say. I'm going to introduce them. We're going to start with the one and only Mr. Bob Cicherillo, the voice of bodybuilding, the legendary Mr. USA. He is a wealth of knowledge, and he has, like I said, a lot to say, which we will hear everything about it. And how are you doing today, Bob?
I am rocking and rolling. Actually, I'm trying to breathe because the pollen out here in Georgia is absolutely all over the place. So I was cutting the lawn, something that Shawn knows absolutely nothing about, and absolutely. So yeah, it's a little stuffy out here.
Who says he can dish it, but he can't take it? Shawn can take it, right? We have.
It's been a long time since I've mowed a lawn, but go ahead.
Do my introduction. He can't take manual labor. That's for sure.
I'm waiting for my intro.
Yes, we do have the legendary Shawn Ray in the house. Shawn Ray has been a top Olympia contender 13 years straight in a row. He's one of the most well-known bodybuilders in our industry today. He's legendary. He also has a lot to say. I actually disagree with what some people say, which is that he can't take it. I think he can take it, and that's what we're here to talk about today. How are you doing, Shawn?
Is this a bodybuilding show or is this a roast? I mean,
we could do a roast.
I got thick skin.
Yes, I'm just kidding. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm ready to get it on with Bob. Apparently,
right.
he claims to know more than me, but we're the same age, and I'm not sure if he does.
We've been roasting each other for 40 years. So
and we're still here, still good friends. I mean, very thin skin in this industry, Wendy. No pun intended. When these guys get ready for competition, so me and Bob have been away from the stage for quite a few years, and we've got pretty thick skin these days.
Well, I mean, I'm here. I want to make sure that I make it clear that I can hang. So I can hang with this whole conversation, and I want to make sure that everybody knows that. So we have a lot to get into. We're going to talk about, some of the buzz in the industry. As Bob says, everything has a shelf life. And so we are going to touch on some things that have already been talked about, but we're going to talk about them maybe a little bit differently. I actually want to start off with this video of you two talking, and we're going to address this first, and then we'll kind of like dive into some other things. Okay.
Literally living in a day. We're living in a time right now where the athletes are paying attention to what the commentators say. One thing I heard, I think it was, I don't know if it was Nick Walker or one of those talking heads were saying, like, what does Bob know? Bob only won the USA. So let me get this straight. As a commentator, you've got to, number one, you have to play the sport. Number two, you have to be better than the people that you're talking about in the sport.
Right.
And number three, your opinion is totally invalid if you don't have the same resume. So that would mean that Howard Cosell, Bob Costas, Bryant Gumbel, Greg Gumbel, all of the commentators, Mike Adamle, they have no place, including Stephen A. Smith and Joe Rogan.
All right, Shawn, I'm going to let you start with that. So tell me, extrapolate on that a little bit.
Well, I mean, hearing the playback, it really sounds ridiculous. I mean, what alternative universe are we living in that the commentators have got to be censored for fear of hurting the athletes' feelings? And I'm not just talking about bodybuilders. It covers the gamut of sports. We saw what happened with Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James, where LeBron didn't like the things that Stephen A. was saying about his son, but his son's fair game. He's in the NBA just like his dad, LeBron. But look, if these athletes are going to push the commentators to simply accept complimentary commentary, you're going to find a lot of people not willing to sit in that commentator position and give their expert opinion. Look, and when I say expert, I'm talking about, I started at 17 years old. I'll be 60 like Bob this year. And I've been to 37 Mr. Olympias, 36 Arnold Classics. There's not a show on the planet that I haven't gone to, including the Middle East, China, Germany, Japan, England. Watching bodybuilding shows is what I do. Writing about bodybuilding shows, commentating, working with companies, working with athletes, and being a contest promoter. I don't know that there's anyone more qualified. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean my opinion is any more valid than someone else. We can all watch the same thing and come away with different opinions. But for someone that's been in the trenches as long as Bob and I, there's some validity to what we say. We're not tearing these guys apart because they're our enemies. I mean, again, to take a page out of Bob, I got sneakers older than Nick Walker. And all of these kids they're coming up, they're doing what we once did, maybe at a different level, different speed. But what we're finding out more and more is there's this thing that we never had coming up called sensitivity. There's a sensitivity level now in not only the delivery, but also the commentary.
Yeah.
If you step outside the boundaries of being complimentary. And I know that for me, I would have never become the bodybuilder I was without the criticisms that I heard from some of my idols, Chris Dickerson and Mike Christian and John Brown. My harshest critics were some of the guys that I revered, I loved and admired. And I had to hear some tough criticism that I had to turn around and do something positive with. So maybe I come from a different era than the guys competing today that are only looking at likes and follows and pats on the back. But there's also a lot of people in the athlete's ear listening to what's being said about their athlete or their favorite, and the athlete takes it to heart, runs to the internet, tries to research who said what about me, and then they take it and become very personal to them, and they will push that commentator that has criticisms. They'll push them away, push them aside, discard them without ever knowing where it actually originates from. I can only commentate on what I see, and I can only agree with what I agree with. And as far as I'm concerned, I've been wrong, Bob's been wrong regarding predictions. But when we're looking at a bodybuilder that's holding water, has a distended stomach, his legs are too big, his torso is too long, his back is too narrow, we know what we're talking about. Not in a critical way, but you're there to be analyzed, and you're fair game. If you get down to those barely nothing, including the women, and parade out on a stage, it's like American Idol. I mean, American Idol, I think, was a great combination of judges because you had Simon Cowell, who told you exactly what he thought. You had Randy Jackson, who he let you know if you're good or bad. And you had Paula Abdul, who thought everybody was great. Well, I watched commentary where everybody was great. And let me tell you something. I don't have to name names. But to the viewer, to the listening person, you don't learn from the commentator that's 100% complimentary without giving us some critical critique.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think something that I was kind of thinking about when I was listening to you talk about that before, and also Bob, is that I don't really feel like this is coming from the athletes a lot of times. Because I could say from an athlete's perspective, if I'm being talked about, I consider that to be a compliment, even if it's good, bad, whatever. The fact that I'm in the conversation right there, you've made it, right? So from there, if I'm getting constructive criticism from you or from Bob, I will take that as a huge win, because now I'm getting like constructive criticism from voices that I can really truly learn from, and I'm part of the conversation. So what I want to ask you, Bob, is, this is more than just like the athletes feeling a certain type of way, but because of social media, I actually think that it's more of the fans. And I've experienced that too, where fans will rally behind me. And I'm like, no, I don't need that actually, and want the critiquing. And then I get, like, I'm trying not to co-sign any of it. So Bob, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first and foremost, you don't ever let the inmates run the asylum. And what I mean by that is we're talking about a different era of fan base out there. Listen, there's always been a fan base of every sport, but there was never social media. So there was no way for the fans to actually voice their opinions unless it was at a show, at an event live, or after the fact. And by after, it would be months later, maybe in the magazines or any other way. Now you've got instant access 24/7. And fan, which most people don't know out there, is short for fanatic. That's where the name comes from. Okay, fanatic. Me and Shawn and I, if I'm being proper, listen, we're fans of the sport itself. Okay, we don't have individual athletes that we're quote fans of. Okay, we analyze, we critique. Again, we've been doing this a long time. We get paid to do this, and just because everybody has an opinion does not mean that everybody's opinion is a qualified one. We are considered experts by ourselves, of course, but mostly by other people in our industry. And those people go back decades, from the Peter McGuffs, God bless them, to the Shawn Perrines. And unfortunately, we've lost a lot of our people along the way.
Very qualified.
Listen, we have athletes that we're friends with who have been pros, top pros, won't name names, but they have a horrible eye for bodybuilding. These people could not have been judges. They just don't, even despite being a great player. It's kind of like the Larry Bird thing, right? Great player, one of the best of all time, lousy coach. So we have to take this all in stride. But yes, surrounding yourself with, thousands and hundreds of thousands, perhaps even millions of fans that are on your Instagram or your platforms who are all blowing smoke up your butt, telling you how great you are and how anybody that doesn't like you is a hater. Okay, you got to use that word these days, because if you don't like somebody, you're absolutely a hater for no good reason. So this is the world we live in, Wendy. Honestly, this is what we have to deal with, and we expect it for the most part. But honestly, it gets a little old after a while. When we critique a show or a athlete, we're critiquing what we see. No different than if you're at a car show and you've got to give your opinion on which is the best car, or the dog show and it's the best in show, and this is your valid opinion. But everybody with a camera and a microphone is a quote podcaster now and a self-proclaimed expert. And that's part of the problem, is most of these people have no idea what they're looking at.
Yeah.
Let me just add something to what Bob said. To give the proper context, for example, I'll go back to LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith. LeBron James didn't like what Stephen A. Smith said. And for those that don't know Stephen A. Smith, he's a commentator. He's actually now talking politics on the news and world affairs.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys, they move around, and that's how they build up their fan base. But he signed a $100 million contract to be a commentator. Doesn't play the game, doesn't box, doesn't do jujitsu, doesn't do karate, doesn't do basketball, football. He's a commentator on sports he's never played. But what he has done is he's built himself a nice resume and a degree in studying the sports, interviewing the athletes, attending the events. I don't sit at home on the weekends and watch these shows. I travel far and wide. I'll be in Switzerland, I'll be in Germany, I'll be in Dubai, I'll be right here in California, I'll be in Pittsburgh. I go to all the shows. You see me at the expos. I come back and I report on what I see. I've been doing it for 40 years, since I was 17 years old. As a matter of fact, I like to brag that I was the commentator on Fox Sports Net when I was in my very last Olympia for television. I know a little bit of what I talk about. I don't self-profess to be an expert, but if I'm not, what is? I mean, I competed for over 20 years.
Yeah.
I was up there with the best. I crossed 3 different decades on the stage, in the 80s, in the 90s, and 2000s. That's 3 decades. I was friends with every Mr. Olympia that's ever won the competition. I've known them personally. But I pride myself in going to the shows because I see different things. But then when I get behind the mic and I'm studying these, I was sitting in the second row of the Arnold Classic. Bob is on stage at the Mr. Olympia. When you come to us, we're speaking from a different perspective than someone looking at the shows on their iPhone or following along on a chat board or looking at Instagram. There's not an athlete competing today that I have an axe to grind with. There's no one that I favor over the next. They're all good. I know what it takes. I know exactly the guy that's last in the Olympia, I'm cheering for just as much as the guy that's first. I feel sorry for the guy that's last because he gets nothing. Worked just as hard as the guy that got first. And that guy walks home with a ransom. I've been fighting for equality for pay for these guys forever. But when it comes down to other people getting in the ear of the competitive athlete that I'm critiquing and that I'm being critical of, it really does muddy the water. It sometimes jades the athlete. And the athlete, I think, is the one that misses out because he doesn't give him a chance to find out where is the critique coming from. I remember criticizing Craig Titus, Killer Craig.
Yeah.
And he tore me apart back on the chat board called Get Big. Ron Avidan's Get Big.
Yeah.
You're lucky you're still alive.
Yeah, I'm lucky I'm still alive.
You are.
Because then I ran into him at a show, the Ironman that he was competing in. I came backstage with a camera. I was making a video. And he pulled me aside while he's warming up. And he said, "Hey, man, I took your advice. You were pretty hard on me at the last show about my stomach and about holding my posing. Wait till tonight. Wait till I get up there tonight." He did a full 360 on what people told him that I was talking smack and talking crap on him. And he used what I said as fuel and energy to correct some of the mistakes. So it does come from a place of love. I mean, me and Bob, we love what we do. We don't know if I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to admit it. I've been wrong many times. I'm not a gambling man. I predict guys over other guys. But when I'm looking at a bodybuilder and I'm being analytical, I'm not being paid to tear these people down.
Yeah.
I'm trying to build them up. And that's the bad rap I think that I've gotten, that I never really publicly defend. That I don't know the guys competing today like I did with the guys I came up with, but I do know what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
I'm not a fool when I'm up there breaking down the detail or lack thereof, the size or the lack thereof, the posing, the commitment, the lack of commitment, the coloring. And if you're too straight with these cats,
Yeah.
their family, their friends, their fans, their coaches, it's a nightmare. It's gotten to the point, Wendy, where it's not as fun for me anymore to give my opinion publicly.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna actually, I want to give you a compliment, and I want to give Nick Walker, Jay Cutler, and
The other guy.
he just won the Arnold, and I just drew a blank.
Derek.
Derek?
Lunsford. Derek, I love Derek.
Yeah.
You just get a brain fart sometimes. So everyone, please give me a break here. I want to give them a compliment. I want to give you a compliment, which is you have critiqued all three of them, right?
Yeah.
However, okay, look at Jay Cutler. You called him, blocky or whatever. He went out and won 4 Olympias, right? Nick Walker, he got a lot of flack when he said he was going to win the Arnold, and he went out and he did it. Derek Lunsford, there was some critiquing of him going into the Arnold. He went and he won it. Now, I would say it's possible that some of your critiques actually did help them, and potentially, whether it was used as fuel, whether they listened to what you had to say about their physiques. But I feel like a lot of the flack comes mostly from the loved ones, the family, the fans, the fanatics. And so I guess I feel like, the champions, the ones the cream that you see rise to the top, a lot of times those are the ones who are actually listening to you. The champions who get to the top, they're listening to what you and Bob have to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that's almost easier, because there's the guys coming up trying to get there are struggling with just the process of getting there, and they don't want that negativity. They really don't want the criticism. Matter of fact, when we were coming up, I would drive an hour to Gold's Gym to let my competition see what I look like. I would go there to pose where Chris was posing and where Flex was posing, and Mike Christian, and we would help each other. We'd encourage each other, and sometimes we throw jabs at each other, but it didn't stop us from the competitive spirit. Now there's some vitriol, there's some real hatred online, where if you say the wrong thing about the wrong guy, the entire country comes for you, and there's no stopping it. It's a machine. It's almost like a calculated, organized cancel culture. If I'm talking about a trainer, if I'm talking about an athlete, if I'm talking about the color, if I'm talking about the posing, I mean, it's almost to the point where I'm of that age where, sometimes I feel some of these kids don't want to learn. So if they don't want to learn, I don't want to continue trying to teach. Maybe it's time to pass the baton so they can get the sympathy commentary that they're looking for, and let's see how that works out for them.
Wendy, the bottom line is this. We're clearly old dogs, okay? That the OGs and any other thing you can think of as that. Like, we're the old Muppet characters. I heard that analogy, the 2 old Muppet guys up in the box, ripping on everybody. We're not changing, okay? I'm not changing. I'm pretty sure Shawn isn't changing, okay? We're still going to be real. We're still going to give honest critique and feedback. We're going to give our opinion. The bottom line is this. If you're a pro in this sport and you're so thin-skinned that you can't take constructive criticism, then get out of the sport. Get out, okay? Do yourself a favor, because we're not the only ones that are out there. And you see the different camps out there. Of course, you got whoever, Nick Walker versus Martin Fitzwater, and the fans start going back and forth, and that's fine. Listen, everybody can have a little fun with it, but if you can't take honest critique from people that have been in this game longer than you've been alive, then get out of the sport, okay? Then this isn't for you. Not everybody is built to put themselves on display and then take criticism and handle it like a professional. So that would be my advice is, listen, pickleball is wide open. Anybody can play. It's great. Probably nobody giving you any critique. Go for it.
I have a question for you, though. I feel like the athletes who, when when someone critiques an athlete and the athlete handles it a certain way, they can mitigate or propel the actions of the fans. And I've seen this, and I won't mention any names, but I've seen, I've seen top athletes co-sign the craziness of their army of fans. And then those fans go after athletes, they go after commentators, go after, and I feel like a lot can be severely mitigated by the athlete doing it the right way. And I really feel like the whole thing between you and Nick Walker, for example, recently, you two handled that situation so well that it became a fun, exactly what it should have been, right? You two had, you guys both exchanged thoughts and made it fun. And in fact, well, let me actually play this clip so that the fans, people watching, maybe kind of get a little bit of an idea of what's going on.
No place to come.
Wait, not that one.
See, we can bleep this up. He says, "Who the f is Bob?" And my response first would be let me tell you who the f I am. All right, I'm the guy that's going to be announcing you in 8th place at the Olympia. Okay, so that's who I am.
Who the fuck is Bob?
There it is.
You love it. It's just an analyst. Come on, you got to give him he's just saying. He's just saying his opinion.
No. Here's the thing, right? And I'm all for constructive criticism. I don't give a fuck. But you want to play the game a little bit, like you're being okay. Now I'm gonna play it back. All fair and game.
I see what you're saying. He could have offered. I didn't watch the whole thing when Bob said that? Did he offer any constructive criticism?
Listen, you know me, bro. I'm not sensitive. I'm the furthest from sensitive.
I mean, okay.
So listen, here's the deal, okay? It's Nick's sense, in my opinion, he's always been a little sensitive, but to his credit, okay, he did fire some stuff back, and that's cool. And then we actually exchanged some personal messages, which were all good. I mean, it was basically look, bro, it's all cool. I actually asked him for one of those shirts in a 2X. I'm still waiting for him to send it to me. By the way, awesome. Shawn started that. Who the F is Shawn years ago? So that's stolen already. But here's the bottom line. Listen, I'm all for that. I think that's hilarious. Yeah. And be advised, Nick. I will actually have a hat or a shirt or something that says Bob was right the entire time that you'll probably have to wear if you fail to either qualify or. Listen, you could listen. 8th place is not stupid. Now I said that tongue in cheek. Obviously, do I think he'll place in 8th? Listen, I don't know, but when you look at the lineup, it's not crazy. Okay, it's not so out of the realm. When you look at the top athletes, and I'll just throw a couple out at you. Okay, so me and Shawn, like I say, we look at the lineups, and we'll be looking at the Olympia lineup, assuming that Nick qualifies this year. And I'm not saying that to be disparaging. Listen, he's got to get through Pittsburgh. He's got to get through New York or some other show because I hear Derek Lunsford's in Pittsburgh. Don't have that confirmed, but I'm hearing it. I know Martin Fitzwater's in there. I know Good Vito's in there. That's 3 tough hombres right there that he's going to have a difficult time. And listen, that's great competition. But let's fast forward, Shawn, to the 2025 Olympia in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, I'm just going to give you 8 names, and you tell me if it's a foregone conclusion of where Nick ends up. Hadi, Sampson, Derek, Martin. All right. Andrew Jack, Brandon Curry, Beirut Tabani, and Hunter Labrada. Now, those are all guys who have either beaten Nick, and Nick's possibly beaten a few of those names, but not a lot of them. Like Hunter placed ahead of him a couple of years ago. Beirut, we're hoping gets here to the U.S. I have it on good authority. That's in the works, so hopefully he'll be here. That's 8 names right there. I mean, listen, it's not crazy, right? So,
what was crazy, Bob, is that 2 years ago we were talking the same language, and I said, "Hey, it's not a foregone conclusion that this guy makes it to the Olympia." Then he got injured. Okay, and then of course last year he pulled out. So he is the modern day Kai Green when it comes to the Olympia. For whatever reason, he is, because Kai Green on his way out never said he wasn't doing the Olympia, but whenever the Olympia was coming around, we had to talk about the Kai Green factor, and he stopped showing up, and he eventually didn't go. It's not a foregone conclusion that Nick qualifies in April, May, or even June. He's got to prove us wrong. He looks like he's on the right track. He's going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, I mean,
Hold on, Wendy.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Okay, go for it.
So he'll be hard to beat because I've been following him on Instagram. He looks freaking phenomenal.
Yeah, he does.
But it's not a foregone conclusion, and that's what I meant when I said he may not wind up at the Olympia, and he hasn't in 2 years.
Yeah.
There's some other things that come into the Olympia besides the people that Bob's talking about. So yeah, if he makes the top 8, that's going to be a solid lineup. If he's 7th, that's great. If he's 6th, he proves Bob wrong. If he's 5th, it's still not what he wants because he was 3rd one time. He knows he knows what that tastes like. So if I'm going to the Olympia, I want to be better than 3rd because that's my next bite at the apple. So I try to shut Bob out because he's the last thing on my mind. I'm going to get paid. I'm trying to set myself up. I'm trying to make history if I'm Nick. What Bob said is just another opinion, which doesn't carry a whole lot of weight. So he should he shouldn't dwell on just Bob. Well, Bob's the MC. Well, so does that make Bob's opinion invalid because he's the MC?
Right.
How about if we talk to Big Steve Weinberger right now? And Big Steve Weinberger goes, well, I got Nick in the top 5. Is that more credibility? Yeah, I mean, it's logical that it could be top 5, but it's also logical that it could be 8th or maybe not even qualify for the Olympia. So one opinion doesn't hold more water than the next, and the athlete themselves only give this more energy when their trainers, coaches, family, and friends are pointing the finger. There's been 10 pieces made about Bob's commentary about Nick. 10 other podcasters with the same opinions that are not as qualified as Bob's trying to throw Bob under the bus because he's holding the mic. How about Joe Rogan talking about the fighters, handicapping it before the fight, and then he's got to commentate on the fight. Then he's got to interview them after the fight. There's no real bad blood. There's no real animosity. I mean, it's we're all in this together. So to make it enemy out of someone's opinion, it's just I don't understand how that's happening. I don't get it.
I don't either.
For the record, me and Nick are good. Like I said, we're going to have some fun, and we're going to continue to have some fun with this. And listen, let the fans chime in. That's cool. I can take it as good as I can dish it. That's what makes this fun. If you don't have any fun doing this sport, which is hard enough to have any fun, really, because let's face it, it's very boring for the most part. So, listen, I am all for Nick. I am rooting Nick on. I would love nothing more than him to qualify and get on the Olympia stage because I think it's exciting. Just as I said to Nick when he was off the stage last year, it's a much better, Olympia with you in it, and I sincerely say that. But listen, the story may be changing quickly because if the information I got is correct, if Derek Lunsford is going in Pittsburgh, and if I'm Derek Lunsford, first of all, I'm in a no-lose situation right now. I'm going to go to Pittsburgh.
I said Derek and Martin.
Derek and Martin. Martin is for sure. I've heard Derek, but let's just say he's in, okay? Just those two guys. Those two guys who certainly listen, Derek has been Mr. Olympia. Now he just won the Arnold. The chances of Nick being Derek is very, very low. Okay. Not saying it's impossible, everybody. So don't start emailing me and, hit my IG. Okay. But it'd be very difficult for him to beat Derek. And Martin, from what we saw last year, is no pushover. A lot of us, including myself, had him beating Nick in New York. That's here nor there at this point. If Derek goes in Pittsburgh and Martin, almost assuredly, they're both going to go to New York. It's 5 days later. Okay. It's a hop, skip, and a jump over. It's another title. It's that New York Pro ring in your pocket on the way to the big dance. If Nick doesn't qualify at those two shows, this is where it gets interesting because now you got to get some strategy in here. And Shawn, you know all about that. What are you going to do now? Do you continue? Do you hit a show in June, July, try to get to the Olympia? Does all the gas get out of the tank before you even get there? Or do you skip it for a 3rd year?
Yeah, it's a long run from April to June or July if these two shows don't pan out for Nick. So there's a lot of pressure. He looks freaking phenomenal right now.
Yeah.
He looks great.
He's an animal. Let's face it.
Yeah, and he's had a very long layoff, right? So it's been a year since we saw him on stage in May of last year. So he has a slight advantage over Fitzwater, who didn't take a break. He didn't have a long off season. And he is coming in heavier. And I don't know that Fitzwater, his height and his frame can handle too much extra weight. But Nick has got to be suffering right now because, again, he came up really heavy in the offseason. But the irony of all of that is, like Bob said, and this is the fly in the ointment, Derek jumping in this show It is spoiler alert 101. This is a golden opportunity for Nick Walker to pull a Gunther Schlurkamp over Ronnie Coleman, if ever there was one. So this is where he could have his aha, I got you moment, which really makes the Olympia that much more interesting. If Nick Walker takes out the reigning Arnold Classic champion on his comeback, qualifies for the Olympia, and now Derek's left scrambling. Samson will be licking his chops, but Hadi Chupin will be waiting for him come Las Vegas. We're in a very good time right now in our sport where predictions are running rampant. Nobody's opinion is more important or more valid than the next guy, but we are entitled to our opinion. So all the attacking just needs to go away.
Yeah.
And let me get just one more point, Wendy, before you move on with that. It's not a 3-man race, okay? You got Michael Krizo coming back. He had some shoulder surgery, but I saw a recent picture, and this guy's a ton of bricks. Hasn't quite found his stride yet, but man, he carries a lot of muscle on his frame. Regan Grimes, we haven't seen in a year, but Regan is tall, put together well, great symmetry and proportion, a la Samson. If he can put it together, again, he's up there in the mix. And like I mentioned, Good Vito is also in there. Now, he may not be the most aesthetically pleasing, but he does bring a great package of muscle and conditioning. So both these lineups are proving to be great lineups, but it leaves it wide open. Derek is the fly in the ointment, as Shawn says, because if Derek is in there and Derek's even close to looking like Derek, it's over.
Yep. I think I have a question for both of you guys, but first I just want to say what Nick Walker is known for, okay? And I've always said that I feel like he needs to get more credit for this, but what he's known for is surprising the hell out of everybody. This is what he did when he won the Arnold, and then he came out and he got 3rd at the Olympia. And all along the way, he had naysayers telling him, you can't do it, you're not going to be able to make it, you're blocky, yada, yada, yada. He surprised everybody. And I feel like that's where he thrives. In a world where maybe the fans are rallying on his side and everything like that, it really goes to show the fact that he's making a joke out of this and he's, kind of playing back and forth with Bob. It goes to show he really can't. I believe that Nick himself, maybe not his fans and everything like that, but he himself can absolutely handle the heat. And I feel like that actually helps him to thrive. And with that said, I want to know from both of you guys, what do you think? What are your criticisms? What are your critiques on Nick? Because maybe he's listening to this and maybe it can help him going into Pittsburgh.
No, yeah, I mentioned that. I mentioned that his offseason weight was just a little too heavy. He was not criticized for being too small, but what can happen is that he doesn't come in as hard because he's put on so much size in the offseason. A year away from the stage is not that long. I did that my entire career mostly. Served me well. So Nick's had a very long time to relax. But remember, he was in prep for the Olympia before he pulled out. So let's not forget, his whole summer last year was dedicated to dieting and training for the Olympia that he did not compete in. But he's got more to prove to himself than anybody else because he mentioned he was struggling with some mental health issues. That was never in my vocabulary, mental health. But if that's what his deal was going into the Olympia last year, that doesn't go away. That stays with you. The only way you overcome it is by liking the process, enjoying the journey, and then being happy with wherever you place. He's not in a must-win situation, but his vocalness, his presence online, his response to Bob, he's putting himself right there where, like Muhammad Ali wants to be, right in front of the bright lights. So if you're asking for the bright lights, if it doesn't go your way, we can't. I hope this guy doesn't fall apart because he's going to need to regroup really quick and try to figure out how to get to the Olympia. There's only one way. You don't get there on points. You got to win. And right now, Derek's making it more interesting. And of course, Fitzwater, a lot of people had him winning last year. So Nick could wind up in 3rd place in a contest that in his mind, he's thinking he's going to win. But he's on record as saying he's going to be the next Mr. Olympia winner. That's great confidence. I think everyone that goes to the Olympia thinks that way. You have to. And like Conor McGregor said, sometimes you have to vocalize it. But when you vocalize it, you got to be ready for other people out there to say, I told you so when it doesn't come your way.
So Nick is the consummate underdog. There's a reason somebody's an underdog. If we're going boxing analogies, which Shawn always likes, Buster Douglas going up against Mike Tyson was the biggest underdog in this world.
62 to 1.
Wasn't accomplished. Didn't have the record Mike Tyson did. Nobody thought
Just
he had
chills.
a snowball's chance in hell of beating Mike Tyson, but he did it. Okay. And he did it for a variety of reasons, mostly because Tyson was in a funk and not at his best. There was no question that Tyson was a better fighter, but you know what? On that night, Buster Douglas beat up a whole bunch of people's betting brackets, and a whole lot of people either won or lost some money. But there's a reason somebody's an underdog, okay? There's favorites that go in. Samson, Hadi, Derek, of course. They're all Mr. Olympias, okay? So, Brandon. So they're all going to be favorites based on the fact that they were able to win our biggest title in the sport. Nick is an underdog because he's not put together the best. Now, this isn't anything Nick doesn't know. He's not the king of symmetry, proportion, or shape. Bob Paris, he ain't. However, he is the modern day Branch Warren. Branch didn't have the best shape, symmetry, or proportion. He prided himself in the fact that despite not having those attributes, that he could outwork anybody and he could get in hard, grainy condition and put as much muscle on that frame as possible. And he got close. Listen, he took a second to Jay Cutler. To his credit, he won some Arnolds. He won the most muscular awards and a whole host of other titles. So it's listen, even though it might be improbable, it is possible. And listen, if I'm an underdog, which listen, I was an underdog just getting my damn pro card for 13 years that it took me. So I know what it's all about, being an underdog, and somebody saying that you're never going to do it and it's never going to happen. So this is why I applaud Nick and his journey. And listen, again, he does give up those factors to some of those other guys, and he's going to have to overcome that. He's going to need a little bit of help from them, and he's going to have to come in 100% for what Nick can come in at, and then he's got a shot.
So where it all falls apart is when someone tries to discredit you by saying, "Who are you?" I mean,
right?
If Dave Palumbo had said the same thing that Bob says, okay, I can see Nick going, "Well, who are you?" Because Dave Palumbo didn't have the track record or resume. If he said Hani Rambod doesn't know what he's talking about, Hani's got a pretty decorated resume of working with athletes. But when it comes down to observation, to the trained eye, Bob and myself, we feel are both overqualified for what we're looking at. Doesn't make us a great judge. I don't judge shows. I've never judged shows. But I have an opinion on what I'm looking at. It's usually pretty straight on. It's why they call me Shawn Stradamus. But that being said, these criticisms coming from the guys in the cheap seats, we're not getting paid to tear people down. We're not getting paid to pick the long shot. We're only giving our commentary on what we see. We don't have an athlete in there. I don't have a favorite. It's not my training partner up there. It's not an athlete I prepared or gave advice to or a friend. I don't know them equally. Samson getting ready for the Olympia. We were DMing back and forth. I was giving him some motivation here and there, and he was responding, very receptive. So when he won the Olympia, I felt a little bit connected because I was cheering from him from a distance, and he was doing the things that he said he was going to do, and then he went out and he did it. So
that's cool.
I was very partial to that victory. But I don't have a favorite. Nick Walker is up there with Fitzwater and with Hadi Chupan, who doesn't speak English.
Yeah.
I mean, I like them all equally because I'm a fan of the game. But when it comes down to having to make these hard corrections and observations, what is Nick doesn't have the best looking legs. The varicose veins don't do him any favors. The way he hits his back double bicep with his leg out a little bit too far, wider than his shoulder stance, I'm not a fan of it. The way he gets very aggressive, like Samson was at the Arnold when he's up there pounding all that crap, it's for me, it's a little bit too aggressive, too much in your face. It's not really a good look. There are things that I can criticize him on, but then I can turn around to the next bodybuilder that steps on stage and be just as critical. And they're missing just as many body parts, and they're doing just as many things wrong. I'm not the guy that's going to go, great tan, great legs, pretty blue eyes, nice posing trunks. I'm going to give you something that you can go back to the gym and work on to become a better bodybuilder.
So Wendy, I'm going to give you, because we like you, we're going to privy you to what we're coming out with this week on the VOB. Yeah, so this is kind of an exclusive right here. You can use this to your advantage and put it in a thumbnail, okay? So Nick had a little Q&A that he was doing this week where he was taking questions from his fans and all that. Of course, half of them had my name in it, who the F is Bob, all that stuff. Okay, that's cool. So one of the questions that came was, it says, Nick, if you could compete in any Olympia in history, what Olympia would you choose to compete in? And his answer was, I'd like to compete in the Olympia that Bob competed in.
Oh.
And I thought, okay, well, listen, that's cool, right? And it's for obvious reasons. I can see where you would say that.
Yeah.
So I took the liberty in about 5 seconds of homework, as me and Shawn know our stuff. And I actually looked up the 2002 Olympia, which is the Olympia that I competed in. So this was the lineup for, and I will stop at a strategic place here. And then we're going to have a little fun, or you can actually put this up next show if you wish. So 2002, Mandalay Bay, Las Vegas, Nevada. Ronnie Coleman, Kevin Levrone. This is the year Jay took off, by the way, so he's not in there. Ronnie, Kevin, Chris Cormier, Dexter Jackson, Gunther Schlierkamp, Lee Priest, Flex Wheeler, and in the strategic 8th place, Shawn, was Marcus Rule.
So the $1 million question is, of those athletes, who was Nick going to beat if that's the one he wanted to compete in? You.
Well, now
you're the only one he wanted to beat.
He listen, he would have had a chance. I mean, listen, I wasn't in the top 10, so I guess we could have taken our chances. But the 8th place guy of all the irony of all ironies was Marcus Rule, who, if anybody wants to take the time, I'll queue up some footage or a picture. This was your 8th place finisher in 2002 at the Mr. Olympia. So good luck, buddy. I mean, all the power to you, but be careful what you wish for, brother man.
It's maybe arguable, but I'm not sure he beats Marcus Rule in that competition. I think Marcus won the Night of Champions the year before, was it? Or that
same year. And you know who he beat?
Was it Kamali? No, it wasn't Kamali. It was Paul Gillette.
Come on, bro.
Paul Gillette.
Are you shitting me? Of all people.
Was it you?
Yes.
Who?
Yeah, Marcus came in his all-time best in the one show that I would have won, the Night of the Champs, and this freak shows up. By the way, Marcus, if you were to stretch Nick up to 5'10" and put about 30 pounds on him, that was Marcus Rule. Also not known for his Bob Paris and Lee Labrada type aesthetics, but this guy was a mountain of muscle. But that's how big and that's how freaky Marcus Rule was. But those are routinely, listen, I know we always harken back to the old days, but those are our days. So listen, you wanted to compete in the 2002 Olympia? There you go, brother.
Yeah, that would have been 23 years ago. So minus that from 29, he'd have been a 6-year-old kid.
I couldn't find it, but someone put a side-by-side of you and Nick Walker. And I think you two are both incredible in your own ways, to be honest. I think
the phrase you were looking for on, because I saw that, was Beauty and the Beast, and anybody can take their pick of who was who.
Well, I'm always going, how do we wind up here? How about if like Bob said, how about if it was Joe Amato, who I used to do ESPN?
Yeah, I remember Joe. Yeah.
How about if it was Joe Amato, just a regular color commentator that says, I got Nick Walker in 8th place? I mean, you don't have to compare your resume to have an opinion. All right. So it's
right. Well, I know. We just are because Bob happened to be really good.
As an MC, you know how much weight we have on the scoring? Absolutely nothing. We sit there and we wait for that piece of paper to come and tell us what the results are. We're not part of the judging process at all. Yeah. So our opinion is exactly the same as the people watching at home. It carries no weight. But to verbalize it, then the athlete has to consider the source. Who's the person saying it? Then the athlete hears all this stuff. Then they've got to one-up them by saying, well, that athlete's not on my level. He's beneath me. His opinion doesn't matter. It does matter. You know why? Because it's coming from a place of decades of experience. When you start talking 30, 40 years, that's decades.
And listen, people, please, for the love of God, man, stop comparing eras, okay? Listen, the shot of me and Nick, listen, they're two different worlds, okay? It's, comparing, Babe Ruth and Aaron Judge, you know what I mean? Listen, you're in two different eras, two different places, and there is no mistake that the era that me and Shawn came from was much, much harder and much, much deeper, okay? That's not up for debate. Now, any expert on this world worth their salt will tell you the same thing. So just stop comparing errors. It doesn't matter if, I was better or Nick would have, or how would he have done, or, he kind of shot down my USA when I shot back. You probably wouldn't even have turned pro back then. And, people thought that was a big dig, except for one thing. You had to win the overall back then. And the list of names in my era were guys like Flex Wheeler, Kevin Levrone, Shawn Ray, Dennis Newman, Melvin Anthony, Dennis James. I can go on and on and on of guys that
well, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that, Bob, because I was thinking, I remember when some of the shows that Nick won, I was there. I handed him his trophy over there with Arnold when he won the Arnold Classic. And I've always said, you're only as good as the people you stand next to, Wendy. You can take this to memory. I'll teach you something, that sometimes you're only as good as the people you stand next to. And someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. And you can't win unless you show up. But I remember the New York Pro, back when you had I remember when I was in, I got beat by Phil Hill, and Robbie Robinson and Bob Paris. And I look at these people, and I look at their resume, and I thought, holy crap, that's a pretty good, those are no slouches, right?
No.
And then, I win the Arnold Classic, and I'm thinking, wow, I beat Vince Taylor, I beat JJ Marsh, I beat Renel Jean-Vier, I beat Samir, I beat Gaspari. Those are some pretty big names. And then I look back at Nick Walker winning the New York Pro, and I thought, okay, who did he beat at the New York Pro? And Bob, you're probably better than at the New York Pro. He beat Martin Fitzwater last year very controversially. A lot of people had Martin winning, and Martin's a newbie. He's this fresh out. He's right out of the box. He's got no resume, Martin. 1 year later, he's fourth in the Olympia. But I think the year before that, it was Hassan Mustafa.
Hassan Mustafa, and I think Justin Rodriguez, I believe.
So those are two guys' names that you'll have to go through a freaking rabbit trail to find out who they are, what they did, or whatever. Not the most decorated, highly successful athletes. Then he wins the Arnold, which we know that's a big feather in your cap. But from that moment, it's all been downhill. He's slightly coming back up the hill now because he came back and he got the controversial victory, but he's got more weight on himself that I zip it and just do the business, because you don't want that pressure, and you already you're reading all the posts and you're listening to all the judges or the fans, and then you're focusing on the MC.
We're kind of losing you a little bit, Shawn. We're kind of losing you a little bit. Really fast. We're kind of losing you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got him. Yeah.
Bob, are you there?
Yeah, I got.
Shawn,
we got you.
We lost Shawn. Oh
my God!
I still got Shawn.
I'm here.
I'm Can you guys see yourselves?
Here. I'm alive.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's good.
Stay with us, everyone.
He may be a little shorter than when we started,
Shawn,
but he is getting older.
Yeah, I can hear you, Wendy.
Oh my goodness, we're losing.
I can hear you.
Okay, I want to say something. Okay, I want to say something to you, Shawn. I hope that you can hear me. I can't hear either of you guys right now, but people here are saying that they can hear you guys. So I'm just going to say this. I don't think that success is a linear. I think that the most successful people, the most decorated people have all been through trials and tribulations, and that's what makes them stronger in the end. And I think, with Nick Walker going straight up and then maybe having a little bit of a downturn, this is the ultimate opportunity to have a comeback story. And that's where I feel like people can really shine. I think when, everything is counting against them, everyone's rooting against them, maybe not rooting against them, but maybe you're not rooting against them. If you're a betting man, you're probably not betting, that, win the Olympia, for example. But to me, for a champion, that's the ultimate comeback story playbook, right?
Well, that's the Muhammad Ali, George Foreman. What was it? In Zaire, when Muhammad Ali came back to fight George Foreman. George Foreman just knocked the snot out of Joe Frazier, knocked him down like 6 times, like in the first round. Yeah. And Muhammad Ali flew to Africa, and everyone said, "Don't fight this guy. Don't fight him." There was only one person that believed, and that was Muhammad Ali. That changed and defined his entire career path by knocking out George Foreman in the 8th round after doing the rope-a-dope. It happens. It's not impossible. Buster Douglas, it happens. It's not impossible. Gunther Schlierkamp knocking off Ronnie Coleman. Shawn Roden knocking off Phil Heath. I mean, there's some examples. And if ever the tables were set for that to happen again, this opportunity for Nick is going to come this year. And it's like, sometimes it only comes once. So he's put himself out there. I mean, I hopefully he can do it, but the stars will not align like they are right now for him to really shut everybody up. It's up to him.
Can you hear us, Wendy?
Wendy's frozen.
I could
Stunned.
I can hear a little bit of what you're saying. I get it, the gist of what Shawn is saying.
Okay.
Bob, what are your thoughts?
I spoke Chinese.
Yeah, you do. My thoughts are pretty much the same as what Shawn just said. The only thing I would add to that is Nick has to block out all the noise, and that includes me. It doesn't preclude my own 2 cents in there. He has to focus on one thing and one thing literally only, and that is Pittsburgh. Because if he doesn't get Pittsburgh, he ain't going to the Olympia. If he goes to New York and he doesn't end up #1 there, he ain't going to the Olympia. And then, like I said, it really throws a curveball into the rest of the year, which should be very interesting should it happen. Because, listen, I think it's a 50-50. I don't think there's any guarantee he comes out either one of those shows with a victory, especially with Derek Lunsford in it, if he goes in both. So that really puts into question, what do you do? Because we're talking about bodybuilding. Okay, this isn't you're going to get ready for the ball game on Tuesday. Okay, you got a bodybuilding prep in a show. You only got so much gas in the tank in any given year. So the problem becomes what do? You go into June, July, and August trying to qualify, and then even if you do qualify, what can you put on stage at the Olympia now that you've had an entire year of prep? You're gassed out. Your body's shutting down, and he is not in a position to not go in the Olympia if he qualifies. So this is where it gets kind of interesting. So listen, we're wishing Nick all the best in all sincerity. Like I say, it's a much more interesting stage and competition with him in it. So if he can beat those guys that we're mentioning at Pittsburgh or New York, I will be the first person to wear his shirt, his hat, and sing the praises of Nick Walker. So that's my 2 cents.
And being the experts that we are, if it doesn't work in Pittsburgh and it fails in New York,
Shawn,
you're here.
Yep, we got you.
We have to realize that if for Nick it doesn't work in Pittsburgh, if it fails in New York, he's got to consider Toronto, I imagine, which would be the next one in line.
Well, the problem, Shawn, becomes, listen, there's a lot of shows he can consider. He can go overseas. He can go into there. He can go into Dubai, which is like going into the meat grinder because Beirut is going to be there, and I honestly don't think one-on-one he can beat Beirut. But again, it brings into question, if you got to go to that length to get to the Olympia stage, number one, is that something you want to do? 2, you're 3-4 shows deep going into. I don't know what kind of physique you can put on the Olympia stage.
He may not line up in the Olympia. He may burn out and not go to. That's what
Shawn, he paints himself into a corner, not for his own doing. He got hurt the first year. Last year didn't pan out too. You go 0 for 3, half your fan base is gone. I mean, I don't care what happens.
And then if he does qualify, it's like, okay, now he can't take a break. So now you show up at the Olympia and you could tumble down to 8th place. It's a strong probability that could happen if those first 2 shows don't go the way he wants them to, or he may just say, you know what, screw it, I'm not doing it, and that's a whole other conversation.
Well, and that's a PR nightmare. Again, listen, we all talk about IG and followers and the millions and all that, and it's all good when it's going your way. But he took a considerable amount of flack last year when he pulled out from his own fan base. You can't, like I said, you go 0 for 3. I don't even know how you recover from that in terms of bodybuilding fans and circles. Your own people will turn on you and start eating you alive.
2 things. I think number one, I think he loves this. I think that he uses it as fuel, and I think he has shown that he can come out of the bottom, right? But I also, wonder if, dealing with the flack and dealing with the, like you said, 3 in a row potential situation, that has to affect someone's mental health in ways that never could have. I mean, we compared eras, right? Well, the era that you guys are from didn't have all the peanut gallery talking in your ear, and you didn't have all these crazy people that you could see what they thought and said and critique you behind a computer screen either. And I think and I'm not necessarily defending the mental health era that we're in right now, Shawn, but I am saying it is a little bit different, and it has to be so difficult, and you have to find something from within where you believe in yourself so hard that it drives you despite all of the negativity. It's just it's a weird situation,
Well,
you know?
let me give a little context, because it's a physique show. All right.
Yeah.
We're not changing the world. You know, Flex Wheeler would go out and compete every weekend along with Vince Taylor and Chris Cormier. There wasn't a bodybuilder show that they couldn't find that they didn't enjoy. And now I'm talking about flying all the way to Australia, going to Spain, going to England.
And they still do Olympia.
Yeah, but it's not like it's impossible. These guys were picking up paychecks. And at the end of the day, this is your job. It's a business. Forget about them. You don't commit suicide because you didn't hit your peak, although some people have. It's just not that serious. It's a physique contest. You're hitting most musculars. These guys aren't out there performing to a symphony with a bunch of people wearing suit and ties. I mean, there's a bunch of people, wearing their sweats.
Well,
You can take it too serious, and you got to step away. You have to go to the movies. You got to go take a walk on the beach, or go do whatever it is that you can to clear your mind from what it is you're trying to accomplish, or you're going to drive yourself into the ground. But if you get second place in the contest, you got the second place prize money. You got your bills covered. You take it, invest in the next show. Go do another show. There's guys. How many shows did Milo Sarchev do, Bob?
4,742.
You were off by 2, but you're very close.
Oh my gosh.
And he's alive and
wait,
well.
are you serious?
Yeah, no. But that's the equivalent. That's the equivalent. This guy competed in every show that there was, and he's fine, right?
I believe he did 73, to be honest with you, but I could be wrong on that. But
my point is this. My point is this. Some people compete all year and don't win and don't qualify, right? So what if it's Nick Walker? If that happens to Nick, he's not a failure in my eyes. He's another guy out there trying to grow. He's got a great fan following. He's got great opportunities. He's making the most of what he has. Would I feel sorry for him? Yeah, because he's got very high expectations of himself. But he shouldn't put the weight of the world on himself. If he doesn't qualify for the Olympia, you know why? Bob just listed 8 reasons why. These other guys are not slouches. They haven't taken their foot off the gas.
You're simplifying it a little bit though, Shawn, because there is a lot on the line for these guys. And for anyone, it's outside of the bodybuilding world too, because we're in an era right now where it's such a business right now, right? The social currency is so real. We're in an attention economy. And when somebody is not winning and somebody is not at the top, they lose sponsorships, they lose the attention, they lose the fans, they lose potential business opportunities. So it is a simplified view of what's going on here, because there is a lot on the line, and that is where a lot of the pressure comes from, I believe. And when you become irrelevant and you drop down, there's a lot that you have to regain, and there's a lot of momentum that could be lost. You know what I mean?
Well, then you're taking the shine off of guys like Tom Platz. You don't have to necessarily win to maintain those business relationships. Nick's a personal guy. If you've ever seen him signing autographs, he didn't have a Mr. Olympia title behind him. I mean, he's still Nick Walker. I think sometimes the fans put too much pressure and expectation on the athlete. He just has to keep doing what he does. The reason we're attracted to what he's doing is because he's doing it at such a young age, and he's doing it at a very high level. But if he's losing to guys that are just simply better, genetically better, that's not a slap in the face. I don't think there's anything in his contract that says, hey, you have to win. That's extra pressure that he doesn't need to put on himself. I never won the Olympia, but I was there for over a decade, and I still managed to find my way through it. It's still a business, but I had fun the entire way. I enjoy it even more now, looking back at what I was up against and the quality of the guys I competed with. The pressure that Nick is going to experience is only the pressure he's putting on himself. He's still Nick Walker, whether he's first or he's 8th. But if he comes down on himself too hard, as if he's some type of a failure, all you have to do is look at the guys that beat you. That's why I don't feel bad about my career, because I look at the guys that beat me. I marvel at it. These guys are some legendary bodybuilders. I wasn't losing to slouches. Nick Walker is up against some very good guys.
And let me give a little positive to Nick, okay? Whether Nick loses or draws, okay? Nick has a distinct advantage when it comes to the fact that Nick Walker is a freak, okay?
Yeah,
he's a freak. And people in bodybuilding, like Marcus Rule, like Mike Matarazzo, like, we've had them all through the years, like Nasser somebody. People like freaks in this business. And I say that for this reason. He doesn't have to win. Victor Richards was a freak. The guy never even competed as a pro. You can have a great fan base, and people will love you to death. I don't care whether you compete, don't compete, or anything in between, because he's always going to be a muscular freak. So he's got that going for him. Listen, if he gets back to the stage, like Shawn says, great. If he doesn't, listen, he can still enjoy a good fan base by just giving it out there. And listen, be the underdog and try to get back there. And people will always respond to muscular freaks in this game. That's what it's all about.
Greg Kovacs, Vinny Pota. I mean, Mike Matarazzo. I mean, Mike Matarazzo is one of those popular bodybuilders we have. He wasn't close to winning a pro show.
Yeah.
No. No.
Mike Quinn.
Yeah, man, you guys are a wealth of knowledge. I feel like I learned more just talking to you for an extended period of time. And we didn't even cover everything that I wanted to cover. So
give us the rapid fire round. Let's go. So.
The rapid fire round?
Yeah, what do
you got? Come on, we didn't put on the time crunch. Fire.
I wanted to talk about the Arnold. I wanted to talk about.
What do you want to know?
I want to know. Okay, let's go. All right.
Come on.
So
come on.
Yeah, give it to me. Give it to me.
Let's go. Yeah.
I am curious about your take on some of the Arnold buzz, right? I know you had Ali Bilal on your show, and something that he brought up that was interesting to me was he talked about the athlete seminar after the event, right? This is something that hasn't really been talked about a lot in, the news and circulating around, but he said that he was invited to the athlete seminar and he had a huge, he had some motivational stuff prepared. He was expecting some questions. And the only thing they asked him was, how do you train differently as a men's physique competitor versus any other division? And he was caught off guard. He didn't know, he didn't even know how to answer that question. He felt like it was a little bit condescending considering what he had to provide and what he had prepared. And then apparently he got taken off the stage before Arnold came on the stage. And he felt it was a sign that Arnold didn't want him on the stage. Now, you had that conversation with him. So tell me, after having that conversation with him, what your thoughts are on that.
Well, let's back up. Okay. So it's very clear Arnold is not a big fan of men's physique. I think everybody can agree on that. He doesn't like the long shorts. He doesn't get it. He doesn't understand why they can't wear smaller trunks. None of this is a conversation to have when the guy was just crowned the winner of your show and he's standing in the middle of the stage waiting for Arnold Schwarzenegger to come out there and give him an award and ask him the three, how did you do? How did you train? What did you eat? Listen, it may be cliche and all that, but it's still Arnold Schwarzenegger. And this was still Ali's moment in the middle of the stage. And unfortunately, Arnold took that opportunity to not say, man, you look fantastic, or hey, good for you, or wow, where did you come from? Ali Bilal, if anybody knows, has a hell of a background story of growing up in Afghanistan and basically being homeless just 3-4 years ago. So instead, Arnold took the opportunity to ask him, why don't you guys show your legs? And then, this is not a question for Ali Bilal. This was a question for Jim Mannion, who was there the entire weekend, or Tyler Mannion. And Arnold, listen, you got his number. You could have asked him at any point, why don't you guys do something with the trunks or the shorts or whatever, okay? But the time for that was not there. It was an inappropriate comment on that spot and really took the shine off of a moment that should have been a keepsake for Ali Bilal. Now, shade to the seminar on Sunday, basically the same thing. Exactly what you said is accurate. Ali gave me the same story. He was, again, looking forward to being invited there, which he was as a winner, and having his moment, or maybe it's with Arnold or David Bay, who was hosting it. And they literally asked him one question, which was that one that you said, which is, again, kind of lame when you consider his background and the fact that he just won the show. And that was it. Arnold was coming. So, Arnold wasn't even on the stage yet. So they ushered him and the bikini winner off the stage, I think. And that was it. That was, again, so you know, you can see why he was making the rounds on our show and others. And it was like somebody took the, you know, gave him a gut punch. Like they literally took the wind out of his sails, where this was supposed to be a great moment in his history of his competing and winning this great show and now getting to the Olympia again. And that's what he got. So I cannot blame the guy for having some sour grapes at this point and making the statement he did, which was, I won't be back.
Such a bummer. Yeah, such a bummer. Shawn, did you get any of that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, he went there to win the Arnold Classic, and that's what he did. I remember, you know, I was training for my first Arnold Classic, and I got hurt, and I didn't compete in it. I went to the second Arnold Classic. I won, and I was stripped of the title and the prize money for failing the drug test. So I went back a third freaking time, and I won and kept the prize money, and I kept the trophy. And of course, after that, I competed one more time in '96 haphazardly, and I wound up in 5th place. I wasn't there for Arnold, and everybody's dreams and goals are different. I was there to try to be the Arnold Classic winner. He achieved that. We build these people up. I mean, Arnold had other things going on, you know, during the course of the day while that seminar is scheduled, and he's working his way there. He may not have been scheduled to be there when Ali Bilal was on the stage. He was probably doing some other stuff. They had the marathon. There's all kind of stuff going on that Arnold Classic weekend, and 78 years old. It's amazing that Arnold Schwarzenegger even had the time to wake up on Sunday and go be a part of that. So to take it personal, I don't know. Maybe my age in hindsight, being a young 24, 25-year-old when I was doing it, winning was more important than me meeting Arnold Schwarzenegger. And that was when Arnold was on top of the game. He was the box office king.
Yeah.
But coming from where he comes from, Ali might have built this thing up a little bit more in his head than anything else. And at the end of the day, I mean, you win the show's over. You got to do it. Nobody had any questions. Okay, so nobody had any questions. I see it all the time, especially with people that don't speak English. You know, you got these wellness girls up there at these press conferences, and they're from Brazil. They have no idea what's going on. He's got his hearing aid. He's got his interpreter on there. Nobody, I mean, it's window dressing for some of these people. But I think when you put an athlete as a Monday morning quarterback and you look back at all these things that didn't go right, it's been exacerbated to the degree where, you know, he's looking at the taxes that were being taken out of his prize money. And instead of like, I'm going to the Arnold to win so I can qualify for the Mr. Olympia. All the rest will take care of itself. The work is over. He's qualified, so he can mark that off of his list of things to do. But I don't know that it's going to dissuade too many other people that have the dream of going there and winning that show. Ollie's one less guy they have to contend with. And if Aaron Banks doesn't want to show up, it makes it easier for the guy that was in third. Someone will be there to take his place. It's not that big of a deal for a lot of athletes that don't care whether or not Arnold asks them a question or walks out and gives them a trophy. As long as the check clears and I qualify for the Olympia and I'm the victor, sometimes that's all it comes down to. Everybody looks at it differently.
Yeah.
Well, in all fairness, Shawn, though, you grew up in a whole different animal. First of all, you were in Arnold's heyday. Secondly, you were the national champion here in the USA. Third, you actually knew Arnold. Like you say, you competed twice before that, but right or wrong that you got stripped that first year. But, you know, you end up the winner. You knew Arnold. You did commentary with Arnold. You know, so, yeah, it was probably not as big a deal to you than it was to a kid who was just in an Afghanistan homeless shelter just a few years ago, with his entire dream was coming here to America, competing in the Arnold and the Olympia. And then that was his moment, which was kind of taken away from him. So I can see where the guy's a little deflated.
Yeah. The journey's different for everybody.
I think that, like, to Shawn's...
The reason I say the journey's different for everybody is because there's a lot of girls that probably feel the same way he does that just aren't speaking up about it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think that, Shawn, to your point, one thing I will say that I definitely agree with you on is everything starts becoming exacerbated. I think that we all do this. We're all guilty of this. Nobody is immune to this, which is something happens. And then you look back at all the things that, you know, before, during, and after, and you compound them all together. And I think that the seminar scenario, regardless of whether maybe Arnold in that moment, maybe he was busy or he had something else to do, or it was awesome that he was even able to show up, right? Yeah. But compounded with what had already kind of transpired, I think that may have become more of a big deal to him than it may have otherwise been, right?
And let me say this.
Let's be honest. I mean, like, listen, Joe Weider, God bless him, rest his soul. He was being pushed around in a wheelchair to like his last Olympia. There was no expectation for Joe Weider to do anything. We were just happy that he was there and, you know, to attend. That may be Arnold someday. So you got to lower your expectations of what Arnold's actually his obligations are. Maybe his obligation was there only to do the interview portion that he was there to do. So we can't point the finger at him not knowing what his itinerary was.
And listen, we got to keep things real here, Wendy. You know, in all fairness, how did your division do at the Arnold?
That was going to be my next question, actually. To extend this further, yeah, I mean, you know, it's interesting for me because I do compete in the figure division. Now, I started competing in 2008 when my only options were figure, fitness, and bodybuilding. Right. So when people ask me, what division did you start with? I say, well, the only division I could have. You know, no one starts out in bodybuilding. I mean, you know, you'd have to be kind of a freak to do that. But I started in fitness and figure. And then as the division started getting added, I thought it was cool to see the world of bodybuilding start to expand. And it was expanding beyond just the kind of the niche freaks that, you know, like I felt like I was a part of. I was always a freak. I built muscle very easily. And when I went to the gym, people would say, what the hell do you do? And then all of a sudden, as the sport started building, rather than people say, what the hell do you do? People started saying, do you compete? And I remember that evolution start to happen. But as divisions started getting added, I know that it's expensive for promoters to add every single pro division to their show. I know it cost Jake a very large fortune to deliver on the like 40, 50 to sometimes 70 athletes in each division. I mean, we're talking about, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars to ship these athletes, including myself, to the show, pay for everything, per diem, yada, yada, yada. So I did think that it made sense when, you know, Arnold, now it's become just another show. It's no longer, it's maybe going to get ousted by the Pittsburgh Pro, I think, as a premier show under the Olympia. It never was equal to the Olympia, but it was like a one scotch under. Now they've taken out divisions, and so it's kind of dropping a little bit more, which they have the prerogative to do. And I do think that it is a lot of money to fork out for all these athletes to come to the stage. I happen to be in one of the divisions that got cut. I don't think it's coming back. It's a hard one, you know. It's just not the same show anymore, and that honestly is okay. It's the expo's still incredible. There's still a lot of other things going on at the Arnold that make it incredible. So I don't know. Maybe that wasn't a direct answer, but my feelings are kind of a little bit, you know what I mean?
Well, listen, it's very understandable if you're in a division like yours that's not there, women's bodybuilding that's not there, the 212 that's not there. What else am I missing? Women's physique, which is not there. And listen, I've also been very fair in this, that Arnold and his crew are the promoters of their own show. He can have whatever he wants. And if he doesn't want men's physique there next year, I know time consideration seems to be a thing for them. Listen, cut that out. You're saving yourself another 45 minutes to an hour. So that's great. If that's what you listen, it's your show. You can do whatever you want. So they're not obligated to have anything. But to your credit, Wendy, yes, it does take down the prestige a little bit when you know, you're not seeing some of the things you used to see. You're not seeing all the divisions. The prize money isn't even, I know they like to think they match with the Olympia, but it's not even debatable. The Olympia is over $2.1 million. The Arnold's not even $1 million. So that's not even a consideration, but it is their show and they are free to do whatever they want in terms of what they want represented on that stage.
Yeah, I know you're talking about the prize money, but you're not even talking about the cost of the athletes. That's a whole nother.
Here, I'll give you that. The Arnold's an invite. You're looking at 10, 12 athletes for half the divisions. I can tell you right now, I have on good authority because I've been doing this a while. The per diem, and when I say per diem, I'm talking about hotel, flight, and actual per diem money for food and all that. For the Olympia is over $1 million. That is just for hotel, flight, and food. Okay, so that's the difference. When you've got 400 athletes versus 40-something athletes, there's a big difference there.
Yeah. And Jake kept that going even during COVID when there were no sponsors, and he ate a lot of that to keep the world alive during the Olympia. And I think he maybe doesn't get enough credit for that, to be honest, but I do give him a lot of credit for that. And I think it's still alive and well, thank God. But yeah, it's just, they're just two different shows. And I feel like the Pittsburgh Pro is really starting to shine. It's just blowing up like crazy. And I have heard nothing but people talk about Pittsburgh Pro this, Pittsburgh Pro that. So I think that we have maybe some other competitors coming into the mix that may kind of spin this thing on its head in the coming years, to be honest.
Competition's good, but it's always nice to have a blueprint. Arnold had a very good blueprint by watching, participating in, and promoting the Mr. Olympia. So he learned from that along with Jim Lorimer. So he's built it into what it is. They're apples and oranges, the Olympia and the Arnold. It's like putting Bob on the stage with me and having a pose down competition. But that
now we're like 20 years ago.
That being said, like Bob said, all roads lead to the Olympia. I mean, we need that Arnold Classic to sort out some storylines. Some of these guys, again, Derek Lunsford made a very fine payday. We knew it was a winner-take-all show for the majority of the people going to the show. They knew. And if Samson wouldn't have entered the show if he didn't think he was going to win. So there was also the possibility that he might lose. So to complain about the second place prize money would be ridiculous. I firmly believe Ali knew what the prize money was when he got invited to compete in the show. And if you didn't, then that's his bad. But I know that when I put on a show and I advertise, the athletes that buy a plane ticket, get a hotel, prepare, diet down, and come, they know what the bottom line is. So I don't want to hear about it when it's over. So I'm a little bit, not connected emotionally to the sad story that Ali was putting out there when it was over. Because to be fair, when he signed the contract, what he was signing up for.
To be fair, Ali wasn't complaining about the money. Actually, the only thing he complained about was for 25 grand. He ended up with.
Discount it. When you say he wasn't complaining about the money, he opened the door to give the financial breakdown. If it's not about the money, don't talk about the money. But he was very clear about how that money was disseminated.
Well, the only thing, again, which I don't blame him for, he was bitching about was the taxes that were taken out, because he ended up with 14.7 out of 25 grand. So listen, we all feel the heat on that stuff, but the money was not his main complaint. His main complaint was that he felt slighted, and that his experience, his moment was ruined. With Arnold, bitching about the shorts, which he has nothing to do with.
Let me ask you a question, Bob. Had Ali wound up in third place, will we still hear the same story?
Well, no, because he would have been in the winner's circle.
Okay, now you're in the winner's circle. Is that when you want to complain about the prize money? I mean, I wasn't in the winner's circle. I was complaining when I wasn't getting the prize money. That's what I was complaining.
He wasn't complaining about the money.
Well, he certainly was very graphic about how the money was doled out.
Well, so would I. Listen, I'd have been bitching too if I got 14.7 out of 25 grand.
So either he is complaining or he's not complaining. That's all.
But that was kind of an aside, though.
I don't know. Complaining is a very broad word.
That wasn't his main complaint. His main complaint was Arnold and the lack of attention, or whatever you want to call it, or the fact that, again, he took that moment instead of getting applauded and knighted by the great Arnold Schwarzenegger, that he's asking him, of all people, why don't you guys show your legs? Why don't you just why would you ask the winner of this thing? Again, ask the federation, ask the pro league, ask Jim Mannion. He was sitting right down there the entire weekend. You could have asked Jim.
Okay, Shawn, I'm just going to play the devil's advocate really fast. And this is what I'm going to say is the person who wins, I think that Ali considered himself to have a responsibility when he became the champion. And his responsibility was to speak up for the athlete. So it wasn't necessarily that he was complaining for himself, is what he was explaining, is that he felt like, as the division has grown, he feels like the discrepancy in the prize money between the physique guys and the classic and the open guys is such a large gap that as the representative of the division at this moment, as number one in the world, rather than making it about him complaining about his paycheck directly. He's complaining as as a whole for his division is what he was.
I get it. Listen, I wish Ronnie Coleman would have done that back in the day, or Dorian.
So
there was a big disparity.
like who says it if the number one guy doesn't say it?
Well, Ali is the number one guy.
Yeah,
and he said it. Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman and even Lee Haney never opened their mouth, not once. Everybody has a different journey. I applaud him for speaking up in victory because most guys wouldn't.
Yeah.
But you sign up for a $10,000 show, $5,000 show, $25,000 show, whatever that looks like, taxes or otherwise, you know what you're getting. It shouldn't be a surprise. The fact that they did the tax situation, if he was blindsided, I mean, you got to ask questions. Hey, when I sign up, how is the prize money? Are we getting the check on the day? Are you mailing it to me? Are you bank wiring it to me? What about the taxes? I don't live in America. How do I deal with this currency? All of that. I've seen promoters have a show, hand you an empty envelope, and you fly your ass home. Yeah. They got all the prize. They got all the money at the door. They got all the sponsorship money in the bank. They can write you a check, but they wait. They sit on it. I used to be in the Olympia. I used to have to wait 2 or 3 weeks after I competed.
Yeah.
But you know what? I still had bills. I still had things going on in my world, and my work was done. So I think it was noble that he spoke up in victory because most guys don't have the kahunas to do it. I would do it in defeat because that was the best time to do it. But let's see if it does affect change. Let's see if he does get people to rally behind him because change comes in numbers. And that's why, again, I stepped down as the athlete's rep. I'm sure Bob didn't feel pretty appreciated about being an athlete's rep. So when people start making noise, that's when change becomes very effective. And you don't just start with one show. Like that was one show. You have to have this, you want to make noise, but do it in unison and do it at all the shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or don't compete. Or don't compete.
Yeah, well, that's if you can't handle all of this, being a voice of, for others, and you can't handle critiques, criticism, you can't handle all of this. And I mean, honestly, you're probably not in the right place, right?
No, that's why I got very thick skin.
I know.
And kudos to Ollie for speaking up. Let's see if the other guys back him up, because remember, there are shows on the circuit where I think the first place prize money is like $1,500. You know?
Yeah.
And it's up to you if you want to compete for it.
Yep.
But there's people willing to line up and get on that stage for a $1,500 first place prize money. They're doing it all over the country.
It's true. It's true. All right. Well, I need to have you guys back because it's such a great conversation, and I still have a lot that I want to talk to you guys about, but we are stretching it out a lot. And I know you two have another podcast you guys got to head on.
I got to eat.
And you have to eat. So,
you've eaten enough today.
Yeah.
Then I got a nap. Then I got to take a nap, and then I got to go back to the gym.
You old bastard.
But first, I'm going to let you guys have the final words. So, Bob, final words. What would you like to say to your friends, your fans, your followers, everybody who loves you?
Followers.
Well, I don't know how extensive that list is, but for all the fans out there, listen, we appreciate you watching us. We appreciate you watching the Voice of Bodybuilding and everything else that me and Shawn are out there doing. Listen, we love the game. We've been in this our whole lives, and we will continue to do what we do. Some people are going to like it. Some people are going to hate it, but you're always going to get the truth out of us and our unsolicited opinion as to how we see the world of bodybuilding. The season's just starting. All roads leading to the Olympia, and we're going to be marching on here throughout the season. So appreciate everybody always watching us, whether you love us or whether you hate us. We may not always be right, but we're never wrong.
Ooh.
Well, I mean, I can't add to that. He spoke for me. Thank you, Bob. And with that, good night, everybody.
And that's it. Bye, guys.